Question 17. The table shows some of the flight distances, rounded to the nearest 10 kilometres, between various Australian cities. Part A. Use the information in the table to complete the network diagram where the edges are labelled with distances. Let's analyse this table. Any cell that contains a dash means there's no direct connection by plane between those two cities. So for example, this dash here indicates there's no direct flight between Adelaide and Brisbane. Any cell that contains a number or a value, for example, this cell here, 1170, indicates that there is a direct flight between Adelaide and Hobart, and the distance by plane between those two cities is 1,170 kilometres. Now we can use these values to then complete the network diagram by connecting the relevant vertices. Now each of these vertices represent the capital cities. So for example, P represents Perth, D represents Darwin, B represents Brisbane, S represents Sydney, H represents Hobart, and A represents Adelaide. So going back to the table, first thing I'm going to do is draw in the edges. So there's an edge between A and H. So going to our network diagram, locate A and H using a ruler. I'm going to join those two vertices like that. And then what I'm going to do is write the distance next to that edge. So 1170. Go back to the table. We have a connection between Adelaide and Perth, and the distance is 2120 kilometres. So I'm going to locate A and P and join those two together with an edge. And write the distance next to that edge, so 2120. This value here, 2850, there's a connection between Brisbane and Darwin. So I'm going to join those two vertices and write 2850. The completed network diagram should look something like this. So we have the relevant edges connecting the relevant vertices with the relevant values on each of those edges. Just make sure though to check that the edges are correct by comparing your network diagram with the values in the table. Part B. Marcia wants to travel from Hobart to Darwin. She wants to change planes only once. Using the network diagram, calculate how many kilometres she will travel by plane. Marcia wants to travel from Hobart to Darwin, but only wants to change planes once, which means there must only be one vertex in between Hobart and Darwin. So by inspection, the only path that Marcia could take is via Sydney. Any other way would mean that she'd have to change planes more than once. So from Hobart to Sydney to Darwin, we'll just write these values down. So there's 1,040 kilometres from Hobart to Sydney, plus 3,150 kilometres from Sydney to Darwin, and that gives us a total of 4,190 kilometres.